pain, pleasure, and purity. It's really I had a simple thought when I prayed about this message, the balance between these two things, and how sometimes it's good to talk about the line between them, because everything in life falls into one of those two categories. We either don't want it or we want it, but we try to stay on the path towards God. 2 Corinthians 12:9 says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." So God often allows pain and suffering in our lives to remind us of our dependence on Him. But in this verse, Paul is talking about a thorn in the flesh he had. He's got a thorn in the flesh that caused him a lot of distress. And instead of removing the suffering, God told Paul that His grace was enough and that His power was most evident in human weakness. That's when you'll say, "I'm not taking it away, Paul. What you're going through, I'm using, and my power will be glorified in what you're going through." Pain humbles us. It does. It unpacking this is interesting. When I was putting this together, I started to discover there's so much more and so much more to learn. It drives us to seek God more earnestly. It deepens our trust in His strength rather than our own. So through our struggles, we experience His grace in a deeper way. That's what Paul's talking about. You grow and you grow closer to God. And life is full of contrasts. On one side of the track with the pain, on the other side with the pleasure. We have both. They shape our journey of faith. Obviously, nobody wants pain. We don't. Nobody in their right mind wants pain. But it does draw us closer to God. That's where that saying comes from. You know, when you're on your back, the only way to look is up. A lot of truth in that. I'm well acquainted with physical pain. I've had lots of it. I wrote down the ones I could think of this morning. Rib contusion, crushed foot, sliced leg open, 2 layers down, broken hand, 4 eye irrigations, superficial acid burns, chlorosolvent, plastic cut, pulverized glass powder, numerous stitches, back injury, stove dropped on me down a flight of stairs, blown knee, and on and on. That's me. And I'm not clumsy, so don't even try it. What, did somebody say right? Okay. So, but, in all seriousness, the pain we're talking about is not that pain. It's, I've been through the pain of losing both parents and losing close friends and losing my mother-in-law, who I loved and she loved me, losing, being with my wife, with her sister-in-law, and all the friends we've lost together. That's the kind of pain we're talking about. I remember... I'm 57 now, and I remember years ago in a psychology class talking about this, pain, the traumatic things we all experience in life. And our professor was telling us this, there's this list of the things people list as the most traumatic things in life. If memory serves me correct, I think I got these right, at least in my classroom it was. So, a couple of the first 3 these are in order: losing a job, moving. People list moving as traumatic. Divorce. Those are obvious ones. But the top 3 were caring for a sick parent, and number 2 is death of a child, and number 3 is death of a spouse. And I don't think any of us can argue with these. They're obviously horrible. Death of a parent is also in with caring for a sick parent, so it's obviously that's not overlooked. But pain is a vicious part of our existence. It's, people, that's primarily what I deal with as a pastor when people need help. Nobody calls me and say, "Hey, I'm just calling to let you know everything's going great." I wish I got more calls like sometimes. Well, people add that though when I see them, so it's not all gloom and doom. But no matter how we decorate the forest, our life, how beautiful it is, we still have to share it with that tiger. That's part of our existence. Pain. Remember when you're terrified and you're a little kid, your room's dark and you can't see, you go into your parents' room. I'm scared. I'm terrified. It's dark in there. Can I sleep with you, Mom and Dad? When you're trying to, why? Well, you want to feel safe. You want to be closer to them. You want to feel comfortable. The grown-up equivalent of that is crying out to God. I can't take this anymore. I need you. I've had it. What am I going to do? I need you right now. Like the little kid in the room that's scared. I need to sleep in your room. I need to be close to you. We're drawn to God and His comfort, His safety, His promises when life feels like it's collapsing around us. But as horrible as pain is, God uses it in a way to pull us closer to Him, which is what He told Paul. Now, pleasure, on the other hand, is something that we all want, right? But if we indulge too much, it can lead us away from God. The contrast between these two is way different than I thought when I started examining these. Ecclesiastes 7:4 says, "The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning," mourning. Mourning, the heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of pleasure. So what does that mean? Well, that means that pleasure is a gift from God and can be enjoyed in the right context. But when it becomes the only pursuit, the main pursuit, it can lead us away from God. So this verse is showing, it's a contrast between wisdom and foolishness, showing that, those that only chase after pleasure all the time ignore the deep, meaningful things that are there for us. Reflection, just things in life. When we don't get that growth and don't realize the dependence on God we have, because overindulgence in pleasure can dull spiritual sensitivity. Half of what I've dealt with since I've been in ministry and my whole life is people that with problems like that. It makes us more self-centered. When you're more self-centered, we talked about pride last week. You start cutting God out of the equation. And seeing this pleasure constantly in excess, it dulls your ability to sense pleasure. That's part of the thing we're going to unpack today. It's not that God doesn't want us to have any fun. He wants our fun maximized. And who doesn't want to maximize pleasure in life? But we'll get to more on that in a minute. True fulfillment comes from balancing enjoyment with wisdom, keeping God at the center of our lives rather than seeking satisfaction in temporary pleasures. So when something feels good, and it's easy to happen, especially when we're young, because when something feels good, you go, oh, hey, I like this. I went to a party and I drank and I got buzzed and it felt good, and I can do that every day. Why not? That feels good. I want to do that when I get home. I want to do, or I met this girl. I don't need to wait to be married. I can do this stuff with anyone. This feels great. I love this. And then you end up becoming either a drunk or a hoe chaser, or you got a gambling problem, and you think, that happened to me. The very first time we were in Las Vegas, I walked through the casino on the way to my room, and I had like 7 quarters, and I went to a slot machine, and I went through all my quarters almost, and I got $75. So what I do, I went, that's easy. $75. I'm going to do this all day. But fortunately for me, I'm wired a little differently than other people, because I get mad. I know people have gambling addictions, and I'm not trying to diminish that, but as soon as I lose a couple of bucks, I'm out, because I'm pretty frosted. I get really frosted. I don't want nothing to do with it. But I know that there's people that don't. They're like, one more, just one more, just one more. And so I don't have a gambling bug, and I never did. But the point I'm making is we start realizing I'm free to do this. I'm free to do things that make me feel good. Why not do it all the time? Why not feel good all the time? Why not have pleasure? Our brain starts to function in this way. That if constant stimulation is absent, then something's wrong. That's why people get divorced. I hear the dumbest stuff. People have been married forever. They go, it's just the spark's not there anymore, and the honeymoon's over. And then that other dumb one, I married the wrong person. If you're married, you married the right person. Marriage is not supposed to be constant stimulation. It's seasons. You have a spring, a summer, a fall, a winter. What do people always say? What do you want to? Who do you want to marry? What do you want in a spouse? Someone I can grow old with. That's what they say. Then they get it and they're like, I don't like this growing old stuff. I want it to be summer all the time. Well, you can revisit summer in the winter and in the fall, but you can't stay there, and that's not why you got there. You don't really leave, it's not always going to be like when you got Post-its at first and you fell in love. I love you. Open the door, I love you more. And you get home and there's one on your keys. I love you with a heart. Post-its I get now and say, why did you put the orange juice back with this much in the container? I get Post-its that say, you left the porch light on again. Those are the Post-its I get now. I don't. But you know what I mean? It's supposed to be that way. Because when you get to that season in your marriage, you earned it. You worked there. It's a foregone conclusion that I love you more than anything and you love me more than anything. But people don't have the constant stimulation, the pleasure. I want the pleasure. I want it to be like the honeymoon. It's not going to be the honeymoon. You sign up for all 4 seasons. And in real life, you get all 4 seasons of real life too, not just in marriage. It's supposed to be that way. Our brain gets this weird idea that if it's not constantly stimulating, there's an issue. When we rely on pleasure, we wander away from God. We wander away from His safety. If the little kid that I told you about in the bedroom never seeks the safety of his parents, he never learns how that translates later in life into the spiritual relationship with God. Because he's going to need to do that, but mom and dad aren't going to be there. He needs God when he grows up. If you think about it, if your little kid, little toddler, whatever, old enough to have their own bed, walks into your room and says, hey, listen, there's a monster under my bed. Can I sleep with you? Well, you may not let him sleep in your room or whatever, but you're at least going to talk to him, reason with him, maybe pray with him, go and show him there's no monster. Comfort him, pull him close to you, love him. I'll tell you what you're not going to do. What you're not going to do is take him back in his room and go, there's no monster in here. Here's all your toys. Turn all the lights on, and let me put your favorite cartoons on the TV. Have fun. You're not going to assault his senses with pleasure so that he doesn't have to deal with the thing that's bothering him, because then what's he learn? Pleasure should be present all the time, and I won't have problems. That's what he learns. Nobody does that. Nobody wants him to learn that. All I want in life is to constantly feel good. Pleasure. That would teach the child. That's exactly what it would teach the child. When we want everything perfect all the time, it breeds addiction. It diminishes our ability to process genuine pleasure. I'm getting to that too. It does. When you see constant pleasure, well, you've heard people, even people with just basic knowledge of addiction, that you need more and more and more to stimulate what the brain keeps asking for. That reality has infiltrated, I can't say a word, infiltrated our lives already through, in additional ways with cell phones. I know, here we go. This isn't about railing against young people. This is pretty much all people, but Daniel G. Amen, that's his last name, Amen, just like it sounds. He's a medical doctor. He wrote a book called Raising Mentally Strong Kids and addresses this very topic, constant flow of pleasure. Also known as a dopamine dump, which is what we want. Damages our brains. This is why God doesn't want us to seek pleasure constantly. 11 of his clinics around the U.S. have examined how phones are changing children's brains because it decreases activities in the prefrontal cortex that involve focus, forethought, judgment, impulse control, and because of dopamine dumps, the pleasure, it wears out the pleasure center in their brains. And that's why a lot of kids are like, I'm bored. You'll give me my phone, I'm happy now. Ooh, look what my friend ate for dinner. Oh, I like her. Oh, look, here's what I'm doing. They got a constant flow of entertainment. It's true. You go, do this. I'm bored. But they got a TV, a stereo, pornography, advertisements, music videos, everything right there. I was waiting to get my hair cut yesterday. I was looking at my phone, but I don't use my phone really for entertainment. I check my email and stuff. I might post a funny picture on Facebook. I just can't sit and watch stuff all the time. But people who need constant stimulation, they go like, this is right here in my pocket. And grown-ups do that. I know grown-ups that do that. Some people live in these phones. They want that dopamine dump. I'm just sitting here. I need pleasure. I need stimulation in the brain. So he said in his studies that we're in the middle of a mental health crisis like we've never seen in history. That's addiction. That's addiction, because that's where pleasure takes us. And you've heard me say it. I think it's a Latin word. The Romans used it, meant slave to pleasure, some kind of pleasure, a dopamine dump. I should be happy right now, and I'm not. Give me my phone. See if I can find something funny. Maybe somebody took some cool pictures of their lunch, like I care. This is where pleasure can take you when you give it authority in your life away from God. And, this this sermon isn't to rail on cell phones. It's to talk about balance. It's funny, if you think about it, it's really funny. This green light started going off when I was reading different Bible verses about pain and pleasure, how it all works. The bad thing can bring us closer to God, and the good thing can pull us away from God. The way we perceive it, anyway. This is why we can't trust feelings a lot, because they get in the way of seeking the righteousness of God. Our instincts are to tell us to run from pain and run to pleasure. But when you constantly run from pain and you constantly run to pleasure, first of all, you miss out on growth without pain. And when we run to pleasure, we diminish the effect in our life. Like I said, you can't feel it anymore. God doesn't say, I don't want you to have any fun. He says, I want you to be able to feel it when you have it. I don't want you full of Novocaine because you're numb, because you spent a whole life chasing pleasure as followers of Christ. You can put up that second slide. We're called in purity, so balancing our responses to both pain and pleasure is vital, so that neither one of them controls us. And these are the topics. This is how we're going to approach this topic today. The purpose of pain, how God uses suffering to refine us. The power of pleasure, how enjoyment is a gift but can become a trap. And the pursuit of purity, how balance in both pain and pleasure keeps us walking with Christ. And obviously the secret to this is balance, but I don't think we think about balance a lot. So one, the purpose of pain is a tool for growth, which I've already alluded to. So I know we don't want it. I don't want it either. But when I go to the dentist, before they fix everything, I'm glad to get that needle of Novocaine part over with. It's not without its purpose. God uses it to refine us, to deepen our trust. James 1:2-4 says, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Because pain teaches us experientially what we can't learn otherwise. That's why it humbles us. That's why we have a deeper understanding of our dependence on God. It also strengthens your compassion once you've been through pain, which helps you strengthen the endurance of others, because you can say, I've been through it. You counsel people, you work with people, you help people. Knowing balance is vital. Pain can also present spiritual danger, though. This is where the balance comes in. Balance flows from Christ, trusting Christ. If we wallow in it, if we wallow in pain, then what do we risk? Bitterness, doubt, turning away from God. You know what? There ain't no God. He wouldn't let me go through this. You just wallow in bitterness. That's what that attitude. I've heard people say that before. All the time. Job's wife. Remember Job? God let Satan tear his life apart. Said he'll still stay faithful to me. His own wife told him, why don't you just curse God and die? It's over. Just curse God. Nice, good wife, right? That's Job 2:9. But all the back and forth, even Job arguing with God, he still wound up with the eternal perspective in Job 13:15, because he said, you know what? Though he slay me, yet I will trust him. What's that mean? Well, if you put that in context with us here now, that means this life's going to be hard. Things are going to happen we hate, and it's going to hurt, because Jesus told us that. But I trust God because I see the eternal perspective. I know it doesn't end when I take the dirt nap. It's not womb to tomb. It's womb to tomb to the great throne room, and that's the real life. That's the eternal perspective, and that's what Job saw. That's why I said, you know what? Doesn't matter what happens to me here. It hurts, but I know where I'm going. I know how this ends. He saw things through the eternal perspective. That's balance that he gets because of his relationship with God. Because the difference between growing through pain and being destroyed by it. What's the difference is our response. It's how we respond to it, whether we get destroyed by it or we grow. I can get closer to God or I can just break apart. The power of pleasure. The power of pleasure. And I've talked about some of this before. It's a dangerous master. So just like pain can drive us closer to God or away from him, so can pleasure. The Bible teaches that God desires for us to enjoy life. Ecclesiastes 3:13 says that each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is a gift from God. You worked hard, play hard. Obviously within the confinements of obedience to God. Pleasure is a gift, but it's meant to serve us, not rule us. You want to see people that are rules, go to the methadone clinic. They're all over the place. When used properly, pleasure, it refreshes us. It reminds us of the goodness of God, watching our kids play, a good meal, laughing with your friends, the beauty of creation, going out fishing, going out hunting, spending time on your boat. Look at this. That's pleasure. That reminds us of our Creator. That gives us gratitude. But without balance, it can quickly become an idol. Why? Hey, I like to do this. I could do this all the time. If we live only for pleasure, it's a cruel master. Let's say that again. Pleasure is a good servant and a cruel master. Overindulgence leads to addiction, laziness, infidelity, spiritual death. Proverbs 21:17 says, whoever loves pleasure will become poor. Whoever loves wine and olive oil will never be rich. So what's it? Okay, listen. The danger in wallowing in pleasure, making it the goal in life rather than a servant. See, first of all, like I said, if you do it too much, you can't even feel it anymore. So you just want more and more and more. Give me everything I want and give it to me until it hurts. That's the road it leads you down. Pleasure is meant to be enjoyed in moderation, not at the cost of righteousness, because it'll kill you. And so we get to the third point, the pursuit of purity. Because pain and pleasure are two sides of this life coin. We're here until we move in to real existence. They both can be used by God or twisted by the enemy. So the key is balance, knowing when to endure pain with faith and when to enjoy pleasure with self-control. I put pictures of Jesus on the thumbnail. I had him in pain, I had him laughing with pleasure, and I had him in majesty on Facebook. And the reason I used only pictures of Jesus, I said pain, pleasure, purity. Well, why did he say that? Why Jesus? Because Jesus is the one who modeled the balance to us perfectly. He is. We look to him for everything. Well, we look to him for this too. And he did it perfectly. Jesus endured unimaginable pain on the cross. Unfathomable pain on the cross. Yet he also participated in the joys of weddings, feasts, parties, fellowship. He walked the path of complete purity, and he never let pain make him bitter. And he never let pleasure make him complacent. Jesus walked the perfect path to purity, having to balance the same things that we do in his manhood. So purity is about staying on that narrow path and not being swayed by the extremes of suffering or indulgence. Things are going to get hard. Things are going to feel good. Balance. Matthew 5:8 says, blessed are the pure in heart. They will see God. That's powerful. You can put up slide 3. A pure heart is one that trusts God in pain and remains grateful in pleasure. Maintaining purity involves choosing the right response to all things. Pain and pleasure are both inevitable. We know that. We covered it. We know that from our own lives. But how we respond to them is what determines. That really highlights what the strength of my faith is. How do I respond to these things? When my friends die, When people I love are hurting. When someone loses someone, I'm trying to comfort. How do I respond to that? When I'm broken and I don't feel like I have anyone to share with, how do I respond to that? How do I respond to what's good for me pleasure-wise? What am I going to do? Overdo it? If we allow pain with risk of, if we wallow in pain, we risk losing faith or damaging it severely. But if we learn from it, we grow in trust. Wallow in pleasure, destruction's down the road. But in moderation, it reminds us of God's goodness. So the purity is the balancing act of both. So let's wind this out into the life application. What's this mean to me? What's your point? All right. I think I made the point through the whole message. How do I know if I'm balancing pleasure and pain correctly in my life? How do I even know that? Well, when you have pain in your life, it can be intense and visit and sob and be sad, and it should visit but never take up residence. If you isolate yourself from everyone else in long extended periods of time, if you stop praying, you stop believing, you give up hope, if you cut off the very people God is sending to lift you back up, the enemy's choking you. The adversary is choking you, and you're letting him choke you. And pleasure, that's an easy one. Anytime your body has authority over your mind, you can go down the wrong road. Anytime you give your body what it wants instead of thinking it through with your heart and your mind, with God and as your centerpiece, you're going to be hurting. You're going to be enslaved. The pain can choke you if you don't allow God to penetrate you with fellowship and your relationship with Him. The pleasure will enslave you if you give your body authority over your mind. We choose whether or not we choose whether or not we allow ourselves to be choked or enslaved. We choose that. Pain's a part of our everyday life, and so is pleasure. But we can choose how it governs our life. It governs our life. I don't know what's going to happen when I leave here. But you know what you can choose? You can choose how you respond to it. And if Christ is first in your life, that's key. Like I said, He set the example. You're holding His coattails, you're going to be with Him. Every cut, there's a stitch in this life. The bad and the good come together, We govern how we respond. Walking in purity means keeping our cuts and stitches proportional. That's how we keep the healing ongoing instead of staying cut open and bleeding. It's done. It's the simplest ways. Same message you hear in every pulpit across America. Prayer, meditation, Bible study, fellowship, being around Christians, being around God's people. Every day we pray for God's wisdom. The first prayer, that's why I said it. Always wake up first. Pray for God's wisdom, balance, reason, and how you face the day and what it will bring. The more you pray this, the more conscious it becomes of you. And I've said a million times, and I believe this is so true, to start your quiet time out in your day with God. It's better to start the day asking for God's guidance and wisdom than end the day asking for His Band-Aids. You go running into the day without God, things go south, and you go, oh, please, Father, heal me. I did this dumb thing, and I did this dumb thing. Start your day with this. We can walk a balanced life. The more we mature in our relationship with Christ, I think we all learn, I'm handling myself better a little every day. The pain's here, but I'm not going to let it take up residence. I can talk with people without having to drink. I understand what is good pleasure, what God meant for good, and where to draw the line. All right.